and today we are diving into an incredibly interesting subject, which is what happens to us when we fall in love, and how can we actually make more conscious choices while we're in that love and dating process. And we're talking with Dawn Maslar. She is the love biologist. She's a biology professor and researcher in the science of love. She's published a book on love based on her own relationships and her attraction to the wrong men. That's an interesting subject for us all. Her groundbreaking findings include the 4 phases of love are destined to become the new standard. And based on this work, she's actually partnered with TEDx to create videos on the science of love for classroom as well as general use. She was also a featured speaker at TEDx Boca Raton with How Your Brain Falls in Love. Welcome, Dawn. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited. To me, this is such an interesting topic. Like this summit, we're talking a lot about creating and conscious love, but the fact is we're experiencing the world in our bodies, and their bodies are reacting to the world. So I think like the more aware you are of how you're showing up in the world and how the opposite sex is showing up in the world, the more conscious your decisions can be, right?
Absolutely. Well, you have 2 parts of your brain. You have the conscious and the subconscious or unconscious, whatever way you want to put it. But our automatic responses are usually subconscious.
Yeah.
So when we become more aware, we can make conscious decisions.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your own story?
Okay. Well, I was a biology professor who was attracted to the wrong men. I was attracted to the bad boy biker. So during the day, I'm a professor, and at night, I'm like chasing this bad boy biker in the band around.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of pathetic, but and when he finally asked somebody else to marry him, I realized that the relationship wasn't going anywhere. So I had my heart broken. I would like to say that was the last bad boy biker, but it wasn't. So after I had my heart broken a couple times, I realized the common denominator was myself.
Yeah.
And that's what caused me to do some work on myself. And once I did it, I was so happy with the results that I wrote a book. And the first book was from The Broken Picker Fixer, which was republished under From Heartbreak to Heart's Desire. And when I wrote that book, I started working with women, and they kept asking me these questions like, how does love work? And how long should you wait to have sex? And as I was answering those questions, I realized that most dating books were based on empirical results or what somebody else did. And I wanted real scientific results. And that's what happened. That's what resulted in the second book. My current book is Men Chase, Women Choose. Yeah. And that's all about the science of love.
Great. Yeah, so interesting. So what are the 4 stages of love?
Okay, well, one of the first questions one of the first things that I found that women are confused about was that about love. When does love start? And most people think you're either love or not. It's like on or off. It's an on or off switch.
Yeah.
Love is actually 4 distinct phases. And the first one is attraction, which has nothing to do with love at all. That's that rapid heartbeat, the sweaty palms. And I used to make the mistake of thinking that was love. As soon as I spotted him, and my heart started fluttering, I'm like, that's it, it's on, let's go. And I would jump into these relationships without getting to know them and getting my heart broken. And I would fall in love and he wouldn't. And that was one of the bigger mistakes that I kept making. And the second stage is dating. That's where you build up the neurotransmitters to fall in love. The third phase is falling in love. That's what I call temporary insanity. And the fourth phase is true love. So what happens is when you're dating, you build up the neurotransmitters. And one of the main neurotransmitters for women is oxytocin, which happens when you have an orgasm. So I would jump into a sexual relationship, I would fall in love. Men don't fall in love that way. That was the whole part of the TEDx Boca Raton, How Your Brain Falls in Love. Men and women fall in love differently.
Yeah.
And then once I fall in love, parts of my brain would shut down. And when that happened, I was not able to see them clearly. And then later on, either they would leave me or later on I'd wake up and go, oh, what was I thinking when my brain came back?
Yeah. So, okay, so the initial like heart palpitation, that I think that that's so interesting because it's a lot of people set that as the standard of that's what I'm looking for, but yet it's really like, is love supposed to make you sick? Like, I don't know if that's true, right? Like there is it's actually like a response of like danger in a way, right?
Yes, it's caused by norepinephrine, which is a fight or flight response. So you would have the same physical effect as if the sexy biker that you're attracted to walks into the room, or a knife wielding maniac. It's
Yeah.
the same physical response. The rapid heartbeat, the dilated pupils, you go into fight or flight response. But when it's somebody cute, we're like, oh, this is great, we're in love. And if it's somebody that's crazy, then we're ready to run away. And I think what it is Mother Nature's way. She links stress with sex. So when you're afraid, you jump down to 4 primitive responses: fight, flight. The other one is feed and have sex. So either you're going to eat something or have sex. And it's way of Mother Nature's way of perpetuating the species, because most of the times you don't want to have sex when you're stressed out. But now that she linked it, you will.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't have anything, it's lust. It really doesn't have anything to do with love.
Yeah, it's chemistry, right? Like I think that people mistake that chemistry for, oh, that's the person I should be going for. But what, in my experience, like in my own personal experience, my experience working with women, that's usually the guy that's like completely wrong for you. And
Well,
go ahead.
well, we're attracted to a combination of opposite and familiar. So opposite would be our immune system, but familiar oftentimes is the dysfunctional family dynamics.
Yeah.
So we can be attracted to the person that like really hits our buttons the wrong way. And if you don't do the work ahead of time about your family dynamics, see if you have any type of dysfunction, and most people do,
Yeah.
that's the type of person that's probably walking into the room that's like really causing those bells and whistles. But the thing is, if you take the time to get to know them, it's only a short period of time. Either it's going to grow and you're going to like them and fall in love, or you're going to realize that it's not probably a healthy relationship. It's that instant love that we're looking for that causes the problem.
Yeah, and I think that that's such a good point. And it also like the whole sex oxytocin thing, it's like if you are having sex with this highly active chemical reaction guy, before you kind of know where you stand with him, before you're on the same page, that can often lead to really big problems, right?
Absolutely. Well, there's 2 big problems. First is you got to get to know them first, because once you fall in love, parts of your brain deactivate. And the part of your brain, one of the main parts, is the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain that judges the other person. Now, I know most people have been there. You have a girlfriend that is who's fantastic, and she's with this like loser guy, and you're going, what is she thinking?
Yeah.
Well, her brain is shut down. So you don't want that to happen to you. You know, your friends can see it, but you can't see it. So before you have sex with them, you want to make sure that you get to know them.
Yeah.
Now, for a woman, the sex really brings on the precipitating effect of falling in love. Not always, but if she's available, it also needs dopamine. So she has to be excited about it. A couple other factors. But for men, it's actually commitment. Commitment seems to be the precipitating cause. So the research shows that once a man commits, it causes a drop in his testosterone, which seems to be the precipitating cause of the cascading effect of falling in love.
Yeah, I would have to agree, like I just from seeing that myself. Mm-hmm. And like the women that tend to, I've been there myself, but I've also seen women that I've worked with who they've had sex with a guy, that the super hot guy, before they were on the same page, and then they're in the relationship with the guy, but yet they know that he's not right for them. They know that they deserve better, but yet they keep going back because they're already just like entangled and involved with him. That's right. Really hard to get out of it. And then it takes like 2 years and you're gone, right?
Right. It takes 2 years for your brain to come back. The other part of your brain that deactivates is the amygdala. That's the part of the brain that sounds the alarm. So when it's not the relationship you want, it's not really registering as being a problem because that part of the brain is not activated. So you're like, you kind of know, well, this is really not what I want. And then he calls. And since your serotonin has dropped to the level of someone with OCD, he calls and now you're obsessed. And he's like, why don't you come over? And you shouldn't. And it's 11 o'clock at night and you're like, okay. You find yourself driving. Why am I going to his house? Why am I doing this?
So how can you actually turn that off? Like, let's say you are in this relationship and like, I want to change. Like, is there a way to just like completely deactivate that?
Well, it's really hard once the reaction has been triggered. So you basically need to get away from the source at that point. So you need to stop talking to them. You need to do some things to increase your serotonin level by like working out, doing good deeds for other people, getting out in the sun, those type of things, taking care of yourself. But that's probably the only way. And it's very difficult. I mean, it's very difficult to do once it's already been triggered.
Yeah, I find like there has to be that like break up moment where you're like, you know what, I deserve better.
Right.
And then you're healing from there. So that's so interesting. Okay, so what is can you explain the men chase, women choose concept to everybody?
Okay, well, it's a biological principle. The biological principle states that the sex that has the greatest risk, in our case, it's women, because we have the risk of pregnancy and childbirth. The greatest risk will be the most discerning and will be pursued by the sex that takes the least amount of risk.
Yeah.
In just about every species that's females or males chase, females choose. There's a few exceptions like the seahorse where the males carry the young and he's more discerning. Mm-hmm. So that's where that title comes from. It's a real biological principle.
Yeah. So where do you see women going wrong with that whole concept?
Well, when women chase, the problem with women chasing is they're basically going against nature. So they end up, first of all, the guy doesn't build up the dopamine enough for him to fall in love. The dopamine dopamine and testosterone increase in the beginning. And those two increase when a guy works for something. Mm-hmm. So without that work, he doesn't build up, but he'll take advantage of a sexual opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's hardwired that way.
Right? It's separate for them.
Yes.
Too, right?
Yes, it's definitely separate from men. Women produce 1 egg per month. He's producing 300,000 sperm a day. He has an incentive to get rid of them.
Yeah. And we're just born with a certain amount of eggs too, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and even if you're past menopause or whatever, it doesn't matter. The principles still hold true that's the way a man is built and that's the way a female is built.
So what are some of the things that, let's say, maybe women don't realize, they don't know that they're actually chasing the guy. Do you have some examples of how women chase men?
Well, by actually contacting him, you can contact a guy. You need to let him know that you're interested, that you're receptive. Mm-hmm. So you can maybe ask him a question or make initial eye contact or initial contact. But once you made that initial contact, if you continue to contact him, you're chasing.
Yeah.
If you're following up on him with like texts, and especially in the beginning, then you're chasing him. You need to let him think about it, mull it over, and contact you.
Yeah. I usually talk about a concept of mirroring, which is mirroring their actions and also their emotional. So mirror his actions. So if he texts you, text him back, but don't send him like a bunch of texts. Go on Instagram, be liking that. Like, just hold back. And then emotionally mirror him as far as what is he contributing to the relationship, because it is true that they need to put that work into it. They need to value it, because men really do value that.
Yes. Men are workers. I mean, when a man falls in love with you, you have a worker. Yeah. And unfortunately, we sometimes don't realize that because women are more emotional and we like to talk. So we're looking for the guy to be like, tell me you love me, do all this stuff. And he's like showing you by working. He's like, I'm fixing your stuff. I'm fixing your car. You know, that's the way he's doing it. He's showing by working.
Yeah, that's a very masculine energy, like producing
Yes.
that type
Yes.
of.
And in the beginning, when you're dating, he needs to work. If he's not working, he's not going to feel like he is in this relationship. He's not going to build up the testosterone. That the testosterone builds up when he's sexually interested in you, and then also when he is working, when he's he's doing, like, actually the more physical labor he's doing, the better. So
Really?
yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah, the research shows that if he goes out and chops some wood, it's the same as being sexually interested in you.
Really? Well, it is interesting though, like men tend to have like a ton of hobbies, and they get really focused on those hobbies. So maybe, yeah, it feels good to them to be like in that flow and building those good chemicals that make.
Well, it's his mojo juice, his virility is associated with work, with the doing.
Really interesting. That's so interesting. So what do you think, like, how do you think women can make more conscious choices when they're dating?
Well, it's really important well, one of the things that we talked about, I'm giving a free gift, which is the list.
Yeah.
So beginning with the list is where you decide what you want in your life. And that's the key. You decide what you want in your life first. And then you decide what you want in a person. And then you narrow it down to what is most important and what is like the deal breakers.
Yeah.
You know? And once that's the beginning of a conscious dating. So you go into a date, you know what you want. Now don't go in a date like it's an interview, but you're going to a date to have fun. But you want to know what you want in the back of your mind. So for example, I had a woman call me, and it was a heartbreaking phone call because she had met this guy and she had fallen in love, and they had dated a little bit. They had a sexual relationship. She was in love, and she's like, how can I make this work? And I said, well, what's the problem? She said, well, we met and he was wonderful, but it turns out he is a yacht captain and he's gone 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And she wants to have children. She wants somebody that's home all the time. And the heartbreak was that you can't change a guy. You can't change his occupation. You just have to before you go out on a date, if that's what you want in a person, even though you're sexually attracted to him and he's really cute and great, you got to know in the back of your mind, this is not going to be the person I'm going to be with.
Yeah. I think that it's good to know, like, it's good to look also for what's available and be open. And so like you're letting the wrong people go so that you can let the right people in. I actually just talked about this in another interview with another speaker, but yeah, like if you have a good idea, and it's not how tall he is or anything like that, it's how you want your life to really be and the qualities and how you want to feel. And I think it's
right.
really
It's a dynamic list. It's a changing list. So you go out, you think you know what you want, and then you go out with this other guy and you're like, wow, I didn't have that. I really like that. And then you can switch it out. That's really more important. I love this sense of humor. I want this every day. So
yeah. I love that advice. It's really good advice. So you have your free gift, which is, you just talked about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, there's actually 2 free gifts on the site. The other one is the neurotransmitters for long-term happiness. So once you get past the 2 years and you're going to true love, what I call true love, when your brain comes back, oftentimes relationships fail because they're not keeping up with the neurotransmitters. They get in a rut. So there's 3 important ones. The first one is dopamine. Again, dopamine is, in the beginning you get tons of dopamine because it's new and novel and you're doing all kinds of fun stuff. But later on you get caught in a rut, and then the passion mode, it's associated with passion. So to continue with that, you have to do new and novel things. So I talk about that in the list and give some examples. Or not the list, but in that write-up. And the other one is oxytocin. That's the one for women to stay close in a relationship. But the problem women make is oftentimes they give one source for oxytocin. First it's her husband, then it may be her children, and then when they leave, they go through empty nest, and they go through a depression or something. So they need to have a bigger source friends and keep doing things. Don't cut yourself off, and don't just rely on your husband, because that puts a lot of pressure on him. For him, it's testosterone, and the testosterone for him is, if he needs to get a win at work, a win at home, or a win in his sport teams. So if he's not getting a win at work, you need to like help him get a win at home. So
Yeah.
kind of explain what are really important for long-term relationships.
I think that's great. So if you're single, you can get the how to start out and how to maintain it. And then if you're in a relationship and watching this, you can get some ideas to how to like really kind of ignite that reconnection again.
Right, correct.
So this is the Irresistible Woman Summit. So what are the qualities, like to you, what are the qualities of an irresistible woman?
The biggest quality for an irresistible woman is receptivity. Now it seems you're like, what is receptivity? Receptivity is an openness to be able to receive. And oftentimes we don't even realize that we're putting the brakes on love, and we're putting the brakes on things in life. And once we're able to receive, I think people call it like more of a feminine quality, feminine energy. But the receptivity, if we look at nature, the females are always receptive. They're open, they're getting from the males, and they're not necessarily giving in the beginning. They're actually sitting back and judging. You know, you'll see the males banging their horns together, trying to fight for the woman, and the women are like, let me see who wins.
She's choosing, right? She's choosing, yeah.
She's choosing, right. But she's being receptive too at the same time. Like saying, I'm here for the winner, whoever's here. But so, and being receptive does mean that you're open. You can start a conversation. You can talk to a guy, but you're within your own power. You understand your power, and you're able to receive.
Yeah.
That is, I think, is the biggest thing that a woman needs to develop when she's going out to date.
Yeah, I love that receptivity. It's such, and again, like how you were talking about, men are workers. Like they are really there to just to produce and provide and just receive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
or to give.
Yeah, and it's not weak to do that. It's
Right.
actually very powerful when you learn how to do it the right way.
Yes.
I love that. So that's such a great note to end on. So everybody, there is a link in your email with the interview that you found this interview, and Dawn's gift is going to be in there. And it's going to also be under this video. So download it and get both of those gifts. They sound incredible, and they sound like really actually super helpful. So if something stood out for you in this interview, like hit reply, let us know what you thought. Let us know any moments or light bulbs that went off for you. I'd love to know more about your experience. And in your inbox tomorrow, you're going to find a link to your next 2 interviews. Dawn, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And everybody, we are going to see you in the next time. Bye.
Bye.